The numbers told the story. They always do.
He's one of those idiots who believe in analytics.
This is a numbers game with Gill Alexander on VSiN.
Hour number 2 of a numbers game at VSiN, the sports betting network, VSiN.com, the VSiN app, Game Plus, iHeartRadio, YouTube TV. All brought to you by BetMGM. We appreciate it. It's Gill Alexander, Kelley, Bydlon back in the house. And for those just tuning in, again, not your typical morning for sure. Here on a numbers game, here on the network, or anywhere really that deals with sports and sports media. Obviously, everybody still concerned about the condition of Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills, who remains in critical condition. That's the last report we've heard after suffering cardiac arrest last night. His heartbeat was restored on the field before he was taken off in an ambulance some 16 minutes after he incurred that injury. And again, the Bills update, Damar Hamlin suffering cardiac arrest following the hit in our game versus the Bengals. Heartbeat restored on the field, transferred to UC Medical Center for further testing and treatment, currently sedated and listed in critical condition. If we have any updates during the hour, we will pass them along to you. And please know that while we are talking about sports betting, because that is, in fact, what we do, that we all have it in the proper perspective, that this is really, let's face it, we get to do this for a living. We're super fortunate. Yes, it's in our DNA to bet sports, and I'd be betting sports if I was not here talking to you right now. But we're super fortunate to do it for a living, but we do recognize that on a morning like this, it really does take a backseat perspective-wise on all of this. We do get tweets at Beating the Book, and I always appreciate the feedback. By the way, you know who else I haven't mentioned here, Kelley? You know who else I feel really is particularly bad for is T. Higgins. What must be going through his mind this morning?
Yeah, to be a part of that. Yeah. It's a wild sequence. It really is. I can't imagine what's going through all these guys' minds right now.
No. And again, the Bills are back in Buffalo. We get tweets, and some of this will touch upon some of these subjects I wanted to. This is from Michael Lafon. I think it's reasonable to expect the Bills and Bengals will play 16 games. This is what I was mentioning earlier. And divisions and seeding will be decided by winning percentage, like when it happened during the baseball strike. I think if the Chiefs win Saturday, they will get the number 1 seed. And Michael, I'm sort of inclined to believe what you're saying. That is sort of my opinion at this point. But we're just speculating. We don't know. The NFL probably should go that route, quite frankly. I don't think you can play this game. And I think that's the only real solution. There is I should point out, there is a week, obviously, between the championship games and the Super Bowl. I wonder if they'll play Sunday. I wonder if you don't just delay the season a week, right? They could do it that way as well. And again, as I said earlier, if the season ends up being imperfect, if some deem it imperfect because the Bills and the Bengals will only have played 16 games, I think more sane minds will prevail there and say, well, that's just too bad if you feel it's imperfect. And for bettors, whatever the results of that is, we'll sort of know in time. John Balduzzi on Twitter, is there any other non-sports phrase that completely encapsulates the absolute shenanigans you're witnessing on the field in real time than pitchy, woo-woo? For sure. Chris Heath, Kelley's right. Only one play for me this week, the Rom Bomb at plus 850 in the golf tournament. Michael Burns, Gill, that's a great impersonation of Kathleen Turner you got going on. You know about Kathleen Turner, Kelley.
She's been in movies.
Star of major motion pictures like Romancing the Stone.
That was the one I was trying to think of.
Body
with
Heat.
Michael Douglas?
War of the Roses. Didn't she do every movie with Michael Douglas?
I think there was multiple.
She's still with us, right? Yeah, she's still with us. Jason H11, poor Gilly going through puberty today. Feel better. Thank you. I appreciate that. And this from Buy High, Sell Low, I was at the Illinois-Mississippi State game with my girlfriend, had Illinois, plus 3.5. Turned to her right after the field goal. She started to leave and whispered, remember the Pats game. It's about to happen, except they actually should do it. Get ready. Hope and laterals, he said. Much worse in person. We appreciate all the tweets. Let's talk some college basketball. Jim Root joins us from 3Man Weave at 3MW_CBB. Good morning to you, Jim.
Morning, Gil. Yeah, it's not front of mind on college basketball today, but we'll do our best. We'll talk hoops.
Yeah, we'll do our best. And again, we were sort of saying at the top of the show, it's one thing to be in the moment during these events. The day after, it's sort of this awkward balance of, trying to keep things in perspective, but also providing some sort of distraction for those who tune in for such things. And so college basketball does provide us with that. And I guess the rightful place to start, obviously, is Purdue goes down. Purdue goes down to Rutgers by a point. This on the heels of Connecticut losing their first game to Xavier. And so I sort of, let's talk about both of those. How do you feel about both Purdue and UConn after those outcomes? Does it change anything you really feel about both teams?
A little bit. I'm starting to wonder if maybe they just got off to these super hot starts, particularly Purdue, and are really treading back down. My colleague Kai McEwen shared with me this morning that Purdue is 0-7 against the spread in their last 7 games. Yeah. So they are really reverting maybe more towards some of the preseason expectations. Teams are starting to figure out a little bit how to take away Edey and force the other guys to beat them. I mean, he's still a monster, but I think they're coming down a little bit, and maybe the Big Ten's more open than we realized. UConn, I'm slightly less worried about. I thought that hostile road environment at Xavier was a really tough place to win. I think Xavier's got some of the key pieces you need to beat them, namely size and a really awesome playmaking guard. So less worried about UConn. Purdue, I think maybe is going to have some trip ups here in the Big Ten.
Is Purdue, well, first of all, is UConn still your number one? Are they your number one power ranked?
Houston is my number one power ranked team. Yep.
Okay, Houston is your number one. Is Purdue the proverbial team, and this is, we're projecting now all the way into March, which, by the way, I say all the way, we're 2 months away. Is Purdue the proverbial, oh my God, I can't wait to see them win as many games in a regular season as possible. Zach Edey will get player of the year. And then as soon as they get in the tournament, maybe not the first round, but they will be a quick out.
It probably will lean that way for me. I do like their freshman guards, but they are freshmen, and I think they struggled at times with Rutgers' length last night. And it's just hard in the tournament. When your best player is a big man, those teams tend to fall a little short. Like if you're needing a bucket and you have to force it inside to him rather than a guard that can make a play off the bounce, that's an issue. We saw it late in the game last night. They tried to feed Edey and it got tipped away, and it's just harder to get him the ball in an opportune scenario. Whereas if it's a guard, he's just already got it at the top of the key. So that is unfortunately a team that maybe isn't set up the best for postseason success, despite, like you said, probably having the National Player of the Year.
What's the team that you've been the most off on based on your preseason thoughts, your priors, either to the good or to the bad? What's the team that, now as we head into conference season, that you're like, oh man, did I get these guys wrong?
Well, it's kind of beating a dead horse right now, but the team that I had to change my power rating the most on is Louisville. I thought they would be normal bad this year, like barely top 100. Yeah. And unfortunately, they're like catastrophically bad. Yeah. So we'll see how that ends up panning out in ACC play here. They're 9-point dog at home today against Syracuse. I think they've got a chance to compete there against the zone, but it's not a pick I would recommend because Louisville could be just a total disaster.
What about to the good?
To the good, I've changed SIU Edwardsville, and I'll go Florida Atlantic. That's a little more relevant example. I've raised them 7 points. I thought they'd be a really solid CUSA team, but right now they look like a easy at large. They're top 40 in KenPom, top 20 in the net. They've got huge wins at North Texas, at Florida. They look fantastic. Their backcourt's really deep, a whole bunch of different options. And then up front, they have a 2-man center rotation, especially featuring Vlad Golden, who's a Texas Tech transfer. So, their talent level is really high. Their coach, Dusty May, has them on a total rocket ship right now, and it doesn't really seem like they're going to come down anytime soon. Florida Atlantic is excellent.
Watch out for those owls, Gill. Hoot, hoot.
There we go.
Hoot, hoot. Is that what you just said?
Hoot, hoot.
I didn't mean to put words in your mouth about Purdue being sort of like the giant in the giant killer March Madness thing. But I agree with it. Okay, yeah. You do. Okay, who right now feels to you to be a giant killer, a team that could sneak in as a mid-major or otherwise into the tournament that you feel has those characteristics, whether it's high pace, really great 3-point shooting, whatever it is that are the characteristics annually for giant killers?
I'll run back a giant killer from 2 years ago. I think Oral Roberts is going to have a real chance to make a run again this year. They still have Max Asmus, kind of the national darling from 2 years ago. It's the opposite of Purdue. Their best player always has the ball in his hands. He's an elite shooter, elite operator in pick and roll. And ththey've added a bunch of shooting around him. They've got a Kansas transfer in Isaac McBride. And then the Arkansas transfer, Connor Vanover, is kind of like this human 7'3" walking stick.
Yeah.
But he gives them some defensive length. He can shoot a little bit too. So their defense isn't quite as bad as it's been in the past. And then you add in A. Smith and the volcanic offense that they have there. I think Oral Roberts could be really dangerous. All
right, what do you like today?
All right, today I'm mostly hitting totals these days, but I do have a first half side. 1-6-2-4 in the betting rotation, Kent State minus 10.5. They've been a fantastic first half team all season. Now they're taking out Western Michigan. It's been bet up a little bit on the full game, so that's why I want to err on the side of the first half and not deal with any of the late games shenanigans. I think Kent State comes out and just out physicals a lot of these MAC opponents. So big fan of the Golden Flashes first half minus 10.5. And elsewhere, I'm going with 1 over and 1 under, both in low total games. 6:33 Virginia and Pittsburgh. I'm going with the over 127. I think this game actually will have a little bit of efficiency. Pittsburgh can actually shoot over the top this year. That's how you need to beat that Virginia pack line. And Virginia is actually a decent scoring offense this year as well. So I'll go over 127 there. And then 6:36 on the rotation, Minnesota and Wisconsin. I'll take the under 124. I think we get a Big Ten grinder, half-court game. Both teams like to play in the half-court. Wisconsin tends to suck the life out of games. Minnesota can't really score that well against this defense. Love the under there. That's my 3-pack for today, Gill.
3-pack. I like it. We got a pack line mentioned in there as well. And just to clarify, Western Michigan, Kent State was a first half over?
First half side. I'll
first
take
half
Kent
side.
State minus 10.5 on the side there.
All right. Kent State minus 10.5. First half of that one. The other two being the totals. We'll have them all in the newsletter, VSiN.com/newsletter, in case you missed any of them. Jim, I appreciate it, sir. Thanks for stopping in.
Of course. Thanks for having me on, and good luck with the rest of the show with this crazy morning we have.
Appreciate it. Jim Root at Second Chance Points. That's with a 2 on the second. Of course, 3MW_CBB for all three-man weave stuff. Pete Fiutak, college football on the other side. Numbers game, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
A numbers game on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Before you make your next bet, be sure to visit VSiN.com to check the current betting splits data.
Split bets.
Sorry about that. Want to know where the money and bets are moving every game? The betting splits page is updated with DraftKings odds every 10 minutes, so you can see changes in all the action. Find out where the public is betting based on the number of tickets and where the money does not match the public opinion. You can check out not just today's action, but future events as well. Betting splits. Yet another way that VSiN is here to make you a smarter, better year-round. Check out today's betting splits for every game at VSiN.com. I don't usually botch that, Kelley. Usually it's you forget or something. I don't usually run through.
Yeah, you've been more smoothly going through them today, but Isaiah challenged us.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, he said, I want to hear you guys both hit this high note today on the splitting bets. That's true. Props to Isaiah, who I think he's done 3 jobs on the show today.
Isaiah did audio here for us, the first 3 segments.
He's directing now.
Oh, man. Jonathan Silvera. Is Gill getting sick or going through puberty again? Latter. Peter Brady moment.
We sound great today.
It's amazing. Listen, for those who are just tuning in again, we want to send our prayers to Damar Hamlin of the Buffalo Bills, who, of course, suffered cardiac arrest last night and remains in critical condition. We have no update since, and hope that everything turns out to be okay. And in the first segment, we talked about it extensively, but one of the things, and this is you look for the good in humanity in these moments while you're praying for what matters the most, his health. But one of the things that came out of this is that Damar Hamlin had a toy drive, and the 24-year-old had something called the Chasing M's Foundation Community Toy Drive, and he was seeking to raise $2,500. And after the events of last night, and this was people were made aware of this publicly in a way that otherwise would not have happened. Up to $3.8+ million now is the latest update. So again, people who, looking for ways to sort of express their sympathy and positive vibes towards Damar Hamlin, this is one way to do it. And so, again, you look for the positive, and there you go. $2,500. How about $3.8 million?
Yeah, that number continues to rise. Great to see.
Yeah, that's for the Chasing M's Foundation Community Toy Drive for Damar Hamlin, the 24-year-old safety. who was a sixth-round draft pick for the Bills out of Pitt just last year in his second season. Again, on a play, I said it at the top, on a play that's like a million other plays we've ever seen. And, again, for those who, if you know people in the medical community, even they were flummoxed last night as to what precisely might have happened. Maybe it was just the imperfect storm where impact happened in just the wrong place at the wrong time. And so we don't know, and we don't want to speculate, and we'll find out all the details as they emerge, and we'll certainly find out how the NFL handles this and betting implications and so on and so forth as time goes on. Certainly not the morning to do that, as we just hope for the best for Damar Hamlin. Do we have Pete Fiutak, by the way? Kelley, we do. Sorry about the puberty as well. Pete Fiutak, ladies and gentlemen, from College Football News, as we try to sort of distract from that story with other sports. Good morning to you, Peter.
Good morning. Yeah, as men of a certain age, has it been determined that football had anything to do with Damar Hamlin? Or is it like you said, perfect storm? Hank Gathers, Reggie Lewis, something. Not that it matters necessarily. All that matters is if he's okay or not. But that was about as frightening as it gets. And obviously, to your other point, and it's the thing that no one can or wants to talk about and gets canceled for doing it. But wow, is the NFL in a pickle right now? Yeah. This is yes, obviously all that matters, football doesn't matter, except when you have a multi-billion-dollar business that you have to keep running. And this is as sensitive and as insane as a situation as you could possibly have if you're the NFL right now.
Yeah, and we don't know what they do. I mentioned earlier there's a free week before the Super Bowl.
Well, let me try this. Let me tie this into college football real quick. My thought would be, okay, logistically, obviously the Bills aren't there. You can't really do this tonight. But let's say you did want to do it on let's say, assuming Damar Hamlin's okay, starting with that, assuming that he improves and like kind of the Christian Eriksen thing that happened in the Euros, where horrific thing gets okay and they get back and play. Actually, they played an hour and a half later than that game. But let's say assuming he's okay. Let's say they can get this thing played on Wednesday and say, okay, we're going to give, I can't remember, I think it's Bills, Patriots, and Ravens, Bengals. We're going to put them on Monday night of next week. Problem is, college football-wise, ESPN owns the national championship, and that's national championship night. So this could get really kind of logistically tricky if they choose to play this game.
My guess is they won't, but we'll see. We'll see. Let me just ask you about this before we talk about the national championship. Let me ask you about this past weekend and the playoff and the Final Four and a day that we will not soon forget. And, in some respects, Pete, the first thought I had was we were kind of due. We were kind of owed semifinal games, right? They've been so terrible through the years. And then
we talked about it.
Yeah. And then we end up with two, I think I'm okay calling them classics. Michigan fans might argue with the officiating shenanigans, the sequence where they got the ball spotted 2 yards further down the field than they should have, and then the overturn of what looked to have been a touchdown and then a subsequent fumble.
How about the targeting? Yeah. That should have probably been called. But look, part of the problem about this is when you have those bad calls, and they were bad calls, that doesn't excuse the 914 yards of offense they gave up in the third quarter where, they got screwed on that touchdown play. But, okay, D up from there, and they certainly didn't do that. But they're absolutely classics. And, I went hard saying that I thought Michigan was going to truck TCU. Because historically that's how it happens. The undercard game is always a dud, and the team that's a little bit of an outlier gets destroyed. And that didn't happen. Couldn't be happier. That was a classic, to your point. And if nothing else, also, this also goes forward with the idea when you expand the college football playoff that, the Tulanes of the world could possibly come up with a win.
Yes.
Game like this, and for the most part, you are going to get Alabama 55-3 or whoever they're playing in the first round, but maybe not. And then Tulane yesterday beating USC with Caleb Williams. You're seeing that some of these teams might actually be able to show up in games like this.
Did this soften Power 5 snob and then Power 5 tiered snob Pete Fiutak a little bit?
Yes, that to a point. I think this was an outlier. TCU was great and give them all the credit, but Michigan, God, they gagged that thing away. That was not the Michigan of all season.
Well, did they gag that away, or to me, as you said, to your point, TCU just kind of beat them. You know, and I do with the exception of that. You know, again, I acknowledge the officiating, just horrible errors there in the first half. But TCU kind of dominated that football game. Whereas I would say I had to go back and try to figure out how Ohio State lost to Georgia. Like I had to go back play by play. Like what happened here?
Well, first of all, start with that Michigan. If they didn't try Philly specialing up and get all cutesy with their play calling, they're probably up 21-3, and that thing is over. So they were this close to busting that open right out of the gate. It didn't happen, and then TCU kind of got in the game, got into a groove, and go from there. But still, TCU outcoached them. That's part of the game. That's part of the thing is that, Power 5's not – and look, TCU is in the Power 5, so it's the Power 5's not there. But no, that was amazing, and the Ohio State game was amazing, and we got two really good ones. I'm still not going to buy in when we get to the national championship on TCU, but boy, that was a good couple of games in a really bizarre bowl season.
Well, so it was a bizarre bowl season. So that brings us to the national championship. Georgia now a 12.5-point favorite against TCU. This did touch 14. 12.5, we're showing 13 as the consensus. All right, I'm braced. Pete Fiutak, has he learned anything?
How do you not? Yeah, how do you not? I mean, Georgia's a machine. They got by the tough game against Ohio State and that talent. I do think it's close throughout, and they pull away late with something big. Again, it's not like TCU stopped Michigan. So I actually am liking the over on the 62.5 because I do think TCU's going to score. This is not the Georgia defense of last year, but I don't think it's an embarrassment by any stretch. But I do think it's close for a while, and then all of a sudden kind of pulls away. I think they can pull. I think Georgia does this by 2 touchdowns. And by the way, going back real quick, I didn't put Stetson Bennett on my Heisman ballot, but I certainly had him argued that you could make a case for him. How that last drive, that last couple drives, how do you not say that's about as Heisman worthy as it gets? If we were able to vote for this thing after the fact, he was tremendous.
He's super underappreciated for a guy who might be on the cusp of his second straight championship. He's
6'5", 240, and then everyone in the top 5 draft pick, everyone would have a different pick of him. But man, that guy came through in the clutch with one of the greatest drives in college football history.
Well, we have 30 seconds. If we did rankings right now, because I just want to hear you say TCU too. What's your
They have to be.
What's your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1?
You have to be. You have to go 1, 2, Ohio State. Georgia TCU. Whoever wins that, 2 being the other one. Michigan 3, Ohio State 4. Alabama, Tennessee 5 or 6, and Penn State in there. I actually probably put Penn State 4 in this whole mix because they destroyed everybody but Ohio State and Michigan. So somehow in that way, shape, or form, there's your zero.
Let's rack that, as Rome used to say. Pete Fiutak just said TCU number 2 because he has no choice. No choice
in this matter.
Thank you, Pete. Appreciate it, man.
There you go.
Peter Fiutak, everybody from College Football News at Pete Fiutak, Fiutak. We'll come back. Little Survivor update. 3 left before this past weekend. 3 still remain with 1 week to go. Numbers Game, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
A Numbers Game on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Become a VSiN Pro subscriber for only $79. Get access to everything we do from now through the big dance. Sign up today and you'll also receive $20 to buy VSiN sports betting hats, shirts, mugs, and other great gear at our online store. Only VSiN Pro subscribers get access to our daily recap of the top plays made by VSiN show hosts and guests, betting splits, and betting reports. Limited time offer, though, so sign up now and get VSiN Pro access through the end of March Madness at VSiN.com/subscribe. It's Gill Alexander. We get tweets at Beating the Book and always appreciate the feedback, even on a morning like this, which is certainly not a normal one for any of us. This is from I Have No Blue Checkmark. Hear this out. If the football game is canceled, it kills Buffalo and doesn't help Cincy. Suppose the 2 teams agree that a coin flip decides the winner. Then the winning team at least has a shot at overtaking KC for the number 1 seed. What do you think? I don't think we're going to do a coin flip. I have his blue check mark. I have no blue check mark. I don't think we're going to do it that way.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I honestly do believe that they'll not play this game. I am just guessing, and they'll just have to go from there. And as I've said many times during the show already today, if that means that some people think it's an imperfect NFL season, so be it. Elvis Toast Patterson. Gill, our thoughts are with with Damar Hamlin and his family, do you think the NFL will push everything back a week to fit the game in? There's a week between conference championship games and the Super Bowl. Yeah, I've said that a couple times today. I actually do think that might be the appropriate way to go. But again, we're just riffing. We're just spitballing on that, and we're going to find out in due time. I think everybody agrees we want to find out about Damar first.
That's kind of what I thought on first reaction kind of this stuff last night, Gill, is that maybe it just makes sense to push everything back a week and you could kind of still play this out like you should. But I don't know. As this goes on longer and longer, I think you're probably right. I think it's one of those. I think it's less likely this game gets played.
I think those two things. I don't think this game gets played.
And it could still be pushed back.
And the season could still get pushed back. I don't know. We'll see. Bill, this is It's Not Juice If You Win. This is to us and to Mitch and Paulie. Said, thank you guys for your shows today. I'm sure it was very difficult, but as a listener, you guys did a great job putting things in perspective. Much respect. That's very kind of you. Listen, none of us, I'll speak on behalf of everybody, none of us signed up for a morning like this, or we couldn't expect to have a morning like this. So it's different for sure. But I just want to send a shout out to, again, I mentioned this earlier, Femi Abebefe and Wes Reynolds, who were on the air while this happened last night on VSiN and handled it with grace. And again, to SVP and Ryan Clark, who I thought were exceptional, were pitch perfect last night in a situation where they had to handle it with honesty and finesse. And you're never going to please everybody in moments like that. And so a shout out to those two guys who obviously did it on a much grander platform. Bill Hooker, in reference to Damar Hamlin having permanent damage, hopefully the 9 minutes of CPR simply refers to the time he received the tube to enable breathing. Hopefully so, Bill. Chance Copperpot, you might think your grovelly voice sounds great today, Gil, but Stormy's current voice got you beat. I'm told Stormy's voice sounds awesome.
She's been, at multiple bowl games?
Yeah.
She's one of the hardest working people around here, yeah.
I'm sure this works much more for Stormy than it does for me. Let me just put it that way. Jason H11. Gill, you should really rest your voice tomorrow. Since Todd Wishnev is in town, he can host. What could go wrong? And Al Giannis, that's a very funny tweet, but I can't read it. All right. Sorry about that. Want a Survivor update, Kelley? Can we do this?
Yeah. We got all three left, right?
Circa Survivor. $6.133 million. That's United States, by the way. That's how it started. 6,133 entries, all at $1,000 a pop. First 7 weeks, it went from 6,133 to 125. Carnage. Next 7 weeks, quote unquote, there's 20 in a Circa Survivor. It went from 125 to 70. It went from carnage to just complete survival mode. Then it went from 70 all the way down to 4 in a matter of 3 weeks. In a matter of 2 weeks. And then, so that brings us to 16. And then, 3 weeks. 2 weeks. And then it went from 4 to 3 in the 17th of the 20th week as the person who was 1 yard away from winning it in that Pittsburgh Las Vegas Raiders game ended up not only not getting it and all 4 advanced that week, but he ended up getting eliminated with the Dolphins against the Packers the next morning, or the next week, rather, I should say. So now there's 3, and 3 went into it this week, 2 of whom opted to take the New York Football Giants, who easily coasted in their victory against the Indianapolis Colts. 1 of whom decided to take the Detroit Lions, who coasted to victory in their game as well against the Chicago Bears. So Brown A or Browna, what are we calling that? Brown A, Browna, 1. Jed 4 and the Enemy Within. Remember, the Enemy Within was the last guy to have multiple entries. Those 3 advanced to the final week of Circa. Now, Aaron Oster was kind enough to sort of send us. He's over at Circa these days. You remember Aaron Oster, don't you, Kelley?
Yeah. We're going to Circa Sports now.
That's right. Aaron Oster, formerly at VSiN, now at Circa Sports. Aaron was kind enough to send sort of what these 3 contestants have gone through to get to this point. And just in case, ladies and gentlemen, you thought that anyone got to this point unscathed, think again. Let's just take some highlights from Brown at 1. He had the Broncos in week 2. Remember, they beat the Texans 16-9 after trailing in the fourth quarter. He had the Packers in week 4. They beat the Patriots by 3 in overtime after trailing in the fourth quarter. He had the Vikings who beat the Bears 29-22 after trailing in the fourth quarter. Thanksgiving.
Can you imagine just stopping now, though, and looking back at that beginning?
Oh, it's ridiculous.
You know what I mean? Like, those are the teams you took to start the year.
How about this? Oh, remember week 16A and 16B is what Circa calls them, but essentially it's, weeks 17 and 18 in a grand scheme of 20. He had the Steelers to beat the Raiders. Remember, he was 1 yard away from getting ousted. Steelers, Kenny Pickett got that yard. Replay showed that he might not have, but he did. So he had that. And then he had the Bucs this past weekend who beat the Cardinals. Remember last week, the week before this past Sunday, 19-16. Remember, they were down 10 in the fourth quarter. Jed 4. Some of the similar games. Also had the Vikings week 5 to beat the Bears 29-22 after trailing in the fourth. Had the Chargers the next week. Remember that game where they beat the Broncos in overtime 19-16?
Yeah.
He had the Bills on Thanksgiving against the Lions. Remember, they won with a walk-off field goal. He had the Ravens in week 13 beat the Broncos 10-9 on a touchdown with 28 seconds left. He also had the Steelers Christmas Eve and the Bucs against the Cardinals on Christmas.
Yeah, I mean that is 4 walk-off field goals.
I mean,
on that graphic we just showed alone, 4 walk-offs.
Yeah, so again, anybody who thinks like that it's you. Yeah, I did this. It's me. I'm just that good. No. You have to have...
This is what it requires.
This is what it requires.
This is what it requires. You have to have a season like this, and usually everybody's season ends in terrible defeat in a way that you thought would never happen going into it, and your heart gets ripped out. So this is it's skating by and skating by and skating by, and let's give
equal time to the enemy within. You want to know his first 2 weeks? Week 1, the enemy within with this entry. Saints beat the Falcons 27-26 on a late field goal after a big fourth quarter comeback. That's the first week of his season. Second week, he had the Broncos 16-9 over the Texans after trailing in the fourth quarter. Week 9, he had the Chiefs beating the Titans 20-17 in overtime after a late fourth quarter touchdown and 2-point conversion. Following week, he had the Niners beating the Chargers by 6 after trailing in the fourth quarter. He too had the Bills on Thanksgiving, who beat the Lions on the walk-off. He had the Commanders beating the Falcons the next Sunday. Do you remember that? That was a Falcons driving for the score, and Deron Payne tipped the ball up at the line of scrimmage inside the red zone, inside the 10, and the Commanders snaked it.
Geez, some of these, man.
He had the Seahawks beating the Rams week 13 by 4 with 36 seconds left. Geno engineered a drive for the go-ahead score with 36 left. And he, too, had the Steelers Christmas Eve against the Raiders 13-10. And that's how they got here. And so it brings us to the final week. The intrinsic value of each of these remaining 3 entries, I want to get the exact dollar figure correct, right? $6.133 million divided by 3 is, drum roll please, $2,000,000. Let me try that again without puberty. $2,044,333.33. Now here's the thing. You look at all the big favorites on the board this week, the biggest of all the favorites, and they're all taken. The biggest favorite not taken is available to all of them. That team is the Jacksonville Jaguars, or as some Kelley refer to them, the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's the same team.
Or as nearly everybody refers to them, Duval County.
Duval. Did you hear Joe Buck threw out of Duval County last night?
I'm so tired of it.
Oh, what's with the Duval County? We should start naming all teams based on their county.
As someone who lived in a lot of places around Duval County,
I was going to say,
it doesn't nearly get mentioned that much in the state of Florida as people mention it when talking about sports.
I told you, why don't we say, the Dolphins from Broward County. Let's start doing that. They all got to take the Jaguars, right? They just get an agreement. Just take them. Just all of you be in the same room. They should all be at Circa. Get in the same room. All put down Jaguars. End of story. Win, lose, draw, doesn't matter. Y'all split.
Chop it. I would do. That's what I would do.
Chop-a-roni.
I mean, personally, you have to take. I think you have to take the Jaguars. If you want to have the discussion with the other guys, go ahead.
Last week, I am told that one of the 3 thought he had an advantage, wanted a little more than 1/3 of the cut. I don't think you can have that attitude now. Coming back, Numbers Game VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
A numbers game on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks, unleashes the spirit of Las Vegas with BetMGM rewards. Every time you make a wager at BetMGM, you can earn BetMGM rewards points that you can redeem for online bonus credits, like free bets. Never been easier to join the action on the new BetMGM app, featuring a fresh redesign with improved features and quicker navigation. And if you're planning a trip to Vegas, you could also convert your BetMGM points into MGM rewards points you can use towards dining, shows, and hotel rooms at over 20 MGM resorts located on the Las Vegas Strip and nationwide. BetMGM Rewards, sports betting's premier loyalty program, including exclusive offers, incredible experiences, and valuable perks when you wager with BetMGM. Sign up with BetMGM or log in today to take advantage of BetMGM rewards. Eligibility restrictions apply. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Must be 21 years of age or older to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. It's Gill Alexander. Kelley Bydlon is here as well. Again, apologize for my voice this morning. I have zero control over it. Puberty, part 2. Does that happen? Does puberty happen a second time, Kelley?
I don't think so.
No, I should really get that.
Maybe we'll see it live on the air.
I should really get that checked. Again, for those who are just tuning in, no update on the condition of Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin, who last we heard again remains in critical condition, sedated. So we don't want to read into, there being no update. We do not want to do that either. He had his heartbeat restored on the field last night, and again, an incident that none of us will soon forget. And again, all the implications that come thereafter take a back seat to his health, and we just hope he is fully or can be fully recovered from this. But we will know in time, and we will update you as those reports come in. NBA, Kelley, I think it deserves a mention because, as we were all watching events unfold last night, and many of us were watching ESPN, and again, remarkable job from SVP and Ryan Clark, among others. I also thought Joe Buck was actually sort of pitch perfect, where
all great.
He was honest about, I have nothing to add. But as we were watching through the night, and some of us who stayed on ESPN, it's inevitable that not only does your brain go places, and you hope for the best for Damar Hamlin, but there's a crawl on the screen, and your eyes avert after a while to the crawl on the screen. And Kelley, as the night was going on, all of a sudden, part of the crawl was Donovan Spider Mitchell drops 71 points for the Cleveland Cavaliers last night in an overtime win. And then shortly thereafter, Klay Thompson and the Warriors. Klay Thompson drops 54. And the Curryless Warriors win in dramatic fashion. Super high-scoring game into the 140s last night. First of all, the Spider, by the way, 143 to 141, and the Warriors get the cover, having laid 1.5 points against the Hawks. First of all, just let me ask you about the Warriors specifically. We've brought this up at different times, but the season continues to go on, and this is the most remarkable home-road split in the history of basketball this far into a season.
Yeah, it's incredible.
In fact, there was a piece in ESPN, and I'll get to it from Kevin Pelton here momentarily. But is there anything to that? Let me just throw that out to you.
Look, it's always hard to. I don't want to say this early in the NBA season, but we're still pretty early in the NBA season. I think you need to weigh opponents, both home and on the road. I brought it up a couple weeks ago on this show. I haven't looked at it recently, but the 3-point shooting percentage of from opponents of what they're getting at home versus on the road is way less, drastically different. It was opponents were shooting under 30% as of 2 weeks ago at Golden State. So I actually dug into it looked at it more as that's a bad sign of things to come more for Golden State than what they're doing well at home versus on the road. I think the road is really what they truly are more. As a team, I don't know that Gill. It's just a team I'm never going to be able to completely count out, especially after last season.
I guess what I'm getting at is from a handicapping standpoint, there's nothing there. Kevin Pelton wrote a piece at ESPN, and it was called "The Historic Absurdity of These Jekyll and Hyde Warriors." And again, we try to sort of provide information that could lead to bets. I guess what I'm saying is sometimes it's noise and not signal, right? He starts off the piece by saying one NBA team, right? One NBA team, and you're supposed to guess it. One NBA team has the league's second best defense on a per possession basis, 4 players averaging at least 20 points a game, and has been able to, overcome the absence of its star player or former MVP to win its past 4 games and retain the best win percentage of any team. And then another NBA team ranks 29th in defensive rating, doesn't have its star, its former MVP, and has lost the past 2 games by a combined 68 points. Distinct to the league's worst record. And the riddle is that it's both of these are the Warriors. One is the home Warriors and one is the road Warriors.
Yeah.
See what I did there? Road Warriors?
I mean, look, they do have one of the better home court advantages, I think, in the NBA. As far as fans go and showing up there, that's always going to be a thing. I think there's definitely spots that I've looked to bet on them at home this year. The road thing, though, I think that shows you more truly what that team is as of right now. Well,
the case that he was making, this is where I'm getting like some things are a thing. Right? It was a little Letterman thing. Is this a thing or not a thing? And what he was basically getting to is that 2/3 of that difference can be explained simply by what's the thing I always say is the only thing you need to know about a box score in the NBA. You just need to know 3-point percentage, right? So it's how well opponents shoot threes. And somehow, no other team sees opponents hit less than 32% of their threes at home. Yet that's the case when it comes to games at Golden State. And then Golden State opponents make 41% of their threes in their own arenas, second only to the Spurs. And the question is that something that's sustainable or not? And the answer is really no. He expects it to be 35.7 and 35.4.
Yeah.
So it's just this. The Warriors aren't playing better arc defense in one spot and not the other over this many games. So I guess what I'm saying is sometimes we'll, as we have to fill content, we'll say, oh, look at this. This team is so good on the road. And this team, it's just a statistical randomness.
Yeah, it is. And look, I think it does provide some betting opportunities, though, because some of the maybe not the books, but the betting into those teams might overvalue truly what it is, for them at home and on the road. One thing, I just looking at some season-long stats with them, I think the biggest problem with them right now is they're second to last in the league in turnover percentage. That's a big issue for them, especially with no Steph Curry in the lineup to run that offense. That's just been a massive issue for them all season long. And then you're letting opponents to the free throw line too much with Golden State. They only a few games tonight, Gill. Nothing really caught my eye for any of the games this evening. A couple of these. Wizards at Bucks. Wizards beat them the other night in Milwaukee. That game in Milwaukee tonight. Bucks laying 8.5 in that game. Got the Celtics on the road at the Thunder. They're laying 8.5, 9. 233.5 the total in that game. 228.5 the total in that Wizards-Bucks game. And then Kings-Jazz later tonight. That's the one that might have the most interest in possibly getting in on the Kings live. You got the Jazz laying 2.5, 3 at home. 242.5 your total. One thing I did want to bring up quick before we ran out of time, if there is a bet to be made in the MVP market right now, if there's a bet, because Luka, Tatum, Jokic, Giannis, they all belong right at the top. But we talk a lot about this throughout the NBA season. Look for those dips in odds on certain players that you expect to finish better. I think Joel Embiid at 11-1 right now is too long for what he's done in the month of December. He's averaged over 37 points in the month of December. Over the last 25 seasons, only 3 players have averaged that many points in a month. Kobe, James Harden, and Steph Curry. His shooting splits, this was before last night, 46, 45, and 87. That's field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and free throw percentage. He is having a crazy good month. I think if you told me you wanted to add him at 11-1, somewhere in the double digits right now, I think that's a good one to add to the portfolio. Good example of this, Kevin Durant. I took him at 30-1 about 6 weeks ago. He's down to 7-1 right now. Those are these spots I think you need to look at to grab some of these award markets bets throughout the season, and hopefully they get in the race. But it's 4 guys at the top right now, and they all deserve to be there. That's for sure.
One other thing, I thought I got all my thoughts out about the events of last night, but one other thing that I failed to mention. Also, kudos to ESPN for not showing it over and over. I think bravo to them on that. We've sort of learned that over time in a different era. We show things like that repeatedly, and I think word got down quickly to them, hey, we've shown it a couple times. That's quite enough. So one more sort of thing to give them praise for last night in what had to be a difficult position for everybody involved, even people behind the scenes. But again, just to give it context one more time, and we'll end where we started, which is, listen, we understand that what we do is a privilege and that what we talk about is really in the scheme of the world trivial. Yes, it means a lot to us, and it's in our daily DNA, and we're not going to change, but we do recognize the perspective after what happened last night. And so please do understand that we broadcast today with that in mind at all times. Michael Lombardi is next with the Lombardi Line. He certainly will give us his reactions from his perspective. The Lombardi Line is next at VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.